My name's Guy Kestevan. I've been a professional bike and kit reviewer for over 27 years, and today is my tech talk round on Yeti's SB140 Lunch Ride Turk T3. So Yeti described this latest SB140 as their true mountain bike. So it's their bob centre, should work for most people, classic trail bike in the manner of kind of specialised stump jumper, Canyon Spectral, Santa Cruz Hightower. It's bang in the centre of that one bike does everything category. Though, interestingly, while most of the world gets the standard SB140 options with a 150mm front fork, the UK only gets lunch ride options, which means you get a 160mm front fork. Now that obviously has some implications on the geometry, so you're getting a 65-degree head angle right on this bike rather than a 65.5. You're getting a 77-degree seat angle, and also the top tube reach is slightly shorter, 480mm rather than 485. So it's a little bit slacker in the head tube, but also a little bit higher as well, with bottom bracket height running at 342mm. But the whole idea of this lunch ride bike is to give you that increased capability out front. It's called the lunch ride because that tends to be the spec that the Yeti employees out in the mountains of Colorado prefer for their lunchtime thrashes in between working on the bikes. And it's basically what, might be called an Evo by other brands. It's just slightly beefier, slightly more capable. Although, as we'll see when we go into the components, it's not a crazy hardcore spec bike. It's still a very rideable trail bike. The other interesting geometry detail is that every size from small to XXL gets a different chainstay length. And it changes by 2mm per size. So this chainstay is 440mm on the large, but it goes 2mm either way, all the way through their sizings. And relatively short seat tube means you can get plenty of dropper stroke in there without interruption. Even though, as you can see, in the belly of the bike, you've got this unique Switch Infinity system. So what is Switch Infinity? Basically, it's unique to Yeti, and it uses two shafts, these short Kashima stubs there, with a sliding knuckle that floats freely. There's no spring or air spring or anything else in there. It just sits on those two shafts, and as the suspension goes through its stroke, it rises up slightly on those shafts and then drops down. What Yeti call a translating pivot, and they call that point where it reverses direction the inflection point. And even though it only moves a few millimeters, that changes not only the anti-squat of the bike, but also the shock leverage. So basically you're getting quite a pedal connected, high anti-squat bike for the start of the stroke up to around sag. Then as it gets to that inflection point, you're getting an increasingly vertical wheel path, so it handles bigger drops better without so much pedal pullback. So positive pedaling off the top and then better big hut control at the bottom. Overall progression rate is about 14%, so relatively low, and that ranges from 2.7 to 2.3. Like I say, most of that ramp up coming in the end of the stroke. So as you might expect, that's a little less than the 160 and the 165, the longer travel bikes, but a little more than the SB120, which is the more pedal-focused trail bike. And the big change on this generation of Switch Infinity is they've made it a much more robust, better sealed setup. You've got metal contact seals over the normal seals. You've got a collet bearing through the centre for easy adjustability, plus it's got grease guards on it as well, and you've got better seals, better bushings, and the whole setup is designed to last a lot better in typically grim UK, or for that matter anywhere else in the world, conditions. While we're down here, before I forget, that's if you're wondering what those little doors are, that's if you're using a wired gear cable setup. This is running XO wireless, and it's the latest transmission version, so you've got a UDH hanger. While we're back here, you can see some nice frame detailing, sort of subtle sand dune, little chain protectors there, and more on the underside as well. And I will say, it is a very, very quiet bike, because while you have got internal cable routing, it's nicely clamped at top and at the base. And also, there's no internal storage on this. Bit of a blow in terms of stuffing your snacks and your spares inside, but it means there's nothing extra rattling around inside the frame tube. Yeti have also paid a lot of attention to this belly area now. It's a lot slimmer, it comes up higher, so there's more clearance ahead of the bike. Before that Switch Infinity kind of gave it quite a bulbous belly, which you could sometimes catch on rocks and logs, which obviously wasn't great. I mean, has got a skid protector in there with a replaceable insert, but, you know, you'd rather not slap that bit of carbon into a big unyielding object on the trail if you didn't have to, even though this whole frame is covered by a lifetime warranty. As I said at the start, this is the Turk option, so it's the slightly lighter, slightly more refined carbon fibre layup. It costs a lot more than the standard carbon bikes, but if you're going for premium Yeti, you want to be looking for that Turk label. And interestingly, all 4 colours that you can get this frame in are reflected in the standard C series as well. And as the frames are identical in terms of the sort of shape and features, apart from the layup, and C series get the older version of Switch Infinity, there's no visual difference between them. So arguably the 5,899 C series bike is actually better value because you get Performance Elite and Performance suspension components on there, and you still get DT Swiss wheels and you get wired SRAM gearing on there as well. Whereas this bike, with a factory fork and a factory shock and wireless, is £9,000, which is a lot for a bike with alloy wheels, even at the premium end of things. I mean, because, you know, I have no complaints about these DT Swiss XM 1700 wheels. They're absolutely bomber tough, super reliable, great durable alloy wheels, great ride feel, but they're knocking on for 2,000 grams. And in the UK, there's no option to pay the extra £1,000 or $1,000 and get the DT Swiss carbon fibre wheel upgrade that's offered in the rest of the world. Now, going back to the frame, you can see Yeti is a really, really organic, flowing kind of form all the way through. It's actually quite narrow around the waist of those seat stays there. And you can see here, there's loads of kind of flowing. I mean, you know, there are edges and lips to it, and it's relatively rhomboid in the down tube, but the overall feel, it's just kind of much more flowing and, you know, shallower around the head tube than a lot of the boxier modern bikes. I mean, part of that is the fact it doesn't have any internal storage in there, but also Yeti deliberately designed their bikes to have a certain amount of flux and flow, certainly their trail bikes, and they changed the layup and they changed the tube shaping with each size to kind of create a holistic rider feel throughout the range, whether you're riding the small or, like I say, right up to extra, extra large. All Yeti SB140s should ride with a similar character. And as you see on the live ride review, when you watch that, it is quite distinctively kind of, like I say, it's just organic and flowing. It's definitely not sketchy in any way. It's not nervous or jittery up front, but there are times when that 36 feels a little more like a 34 than a 38, if you know what I mean. So if you are wanting an absolute bomber, super stiff bike, then I'd suggest you go for the SB160, which is a significantly stiffer, burlier frame, particularly on the front end. In terms of kit, we've already talked about this Fox 36 factory fork. Grip 2 damper. I mean, this bike I got delivered before the latest X series dampers came out, but that's still a really, really good damper on there. Absolutely cracking fork. Then you've got Yeti's own carbon bar in a Bergtech stem. Again, that's the older version of the SRAM Code RSC brake. It's not the latest stealth cable version, but still, you know, a decent trail enduro brake. And then you've got the latest SRAM Axis shifter pods on there as well. And then moving across to the far side, you've got Fox levers for that transfer dropper post. But as you see, they have skimped a little bit here as well. That's just a standard performance transfer rather than a factory Kashima transfer to go with the rear shock. Rear shock is a Float X, so you've got piggyback damper, you've got low speed, and you've got high speed. You've got low speed compression adjust, and you've got rebound adjust there. And it's secured into the frame with this really neat sort of two-piece linkage, and then this big stout forged and machined rocker linkage connecting it to the main frame there. You know, if you're into your art, that looks like a proper Henry Moore sculpture. If you went down to the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, you'd see something like that called Mother and Child. In terms of connecting that shock into the frame, it's a very, very clever way of doing it. Again, not the lightest,
but very strong and set up so it doesn't add extra loading into the shock. So you should get good shock longevity out of that Fox Float X in terms of it being fitted to the Yeti rather than any other bikes. In terms of other frame detailing, it's a nice forged seat clamp on there, no weird internal wedges or anything like that. Although it is an extended seat mast, like I say, it's still got decent room for a long stroke dropper post. See, even got colour-coded rails on that WTB saddle there, and a colour-coded stripe on top, which is a nice detail. And there's your all-important golden Colorado Yeti Cycles flag on the back there. Because although these frames are made in Taiwan, the heritage behind them is very, very much classic American MTB history. Yeti, one of the first premium brands in the US, and have always had a huge racing history with some real icons of the sport riding turquoise bikes at some point in their career. And then final bit of tech spec, like I said, although this is the lunch ride version, you are getting a 29 by 2.5 wide tyre Minion DHF on the front. It's only a Max Terra in EXO. They haven't gone super heavy with an EXO Plus or super grippy with max grip compound, so still a reasonably quick rolling tyre. You got 120mm rotor up. You got 200mm rotor up front, and then coming to the back again, it's a Minion DHR. It's in EXO protection, so again, you're not getting that heavier duty EXO Plus or DD, which more aggressive riders might want, and it's 29 by 2.4 in this classic DHR tread. So classic tyre combo, but definitely more of a trail level in terms of weight and protection rather than super heavy duty or even enduro spec. And then over on the far side, you've got a 180mm rotor. To say tyre clearance is plentiful around that 2.4. You could probably squeeze a 2.5 in there if you wanted to. Yeti don't say anything about making this bike into a mullet bike. Interestingly, they still do have some SB140s around in 27.5, and they have the SB135, which is, they do, I looked on the Silverfish site and they have got some older SB140s still in 27.5, front to rear wheel size, and also there's the SB135, which is their dedicated 27.5 bike of the current generation. So if you like something a bit more playful and a bit more jibby with smaller wheels, then have a look at those bikes. But as it is, this is a really smooth, beautifully balanced, and very, very accomplished bike. I always say it with Yetis, and it's very true of this bike as well. Although the parts are really, really good, competent gear, there's something about the Yeti ride that just makes them feel all even better than normal. Just a real subtlety and nuance in the way they grip, and the way they roll, and the way they flow, and just how the bike feels on the trail. There's a kind of Yeti upgrade feel to the whole ride experience, but obviously you do pay a lot for that experience. So compared to something like a Hightower, you're paying about £1,000 extra on equivalent spec, or on a Hightower you get carbon fibre wheels. But Yeti have always been higher priced bikes. I've been in the bike industry for about 35 years. I said this in the Live Ride review, and I can't ever remember a time when Yetis seemed particularly good value, and yet they've still kept in business. If anything, they've flourished. They've always had a super loyal customer base. The Yeti fan club has to be the most loyal and kind of almost cult-like bicycle brand tribe. The Yeti tribe is legendary for kind of its member events all over the world and having proper fanatical fans. So you are buying into a truly iconic product. And in the terms of this Switch Infinity and this bang up-to-date geometry, even though the geometry is nothing radical, that Switch Infinity really does lend a genuine edge to the ride experience in terms of that transfer between really positive pedaling and then very, very smooth ground control. It really does feel like there's something like AI at play there, when in fact all it is this really clever translating pivot system. But like any system, the more elements you add into it, the more you have to think about in terms of longevity, reliability, and servicing. So do make sure you keep on top of the maintenance of that knuckle and those two shafts, even though Yeti have designed this to be a much more durable version of the Switch Infinity setup.
So hopefully that's been a really useful deeper dive into the technology, the design philosophy, the suspension details, the geometry and the componentry of this bike. But obviously what really matters is how it rides. So make sure you check out the live ride review of this bike as I tested it at the Boltby Bash Enduro, because that will really give you a feel for how this bike rides on a range of pretty rowdy but natural terrain. But for now, massive thanks to Yeti and Silverfish UK for lending me the bike to test. Huge thanks to my other industry supporters who get behind the channel and make it possible for me to make these videos. They'll be listed at the end. Massive thanks to my Patreon subscribers who pledge on a monthly basis to support the channel, and they get exclusive, extended and behind the scenes edits as a thank you, and they get all of those ad-free without interruption. So that's another bonus if you can afford to pay a small amount to support me on Patreon. It would be massively appreciated. But otherwise, subscribe, click for notifications, give this a thumbs up, like, and if you think your mates will enjoy this channel, then please recommend it to them. But for now, I've been Guy Kestevan on Guy Kes TV, talking about Yeti's SB140 lunch ride. A truly thoroughbred and iconic mountain bike from a truly thoroughbred, iconic mountain bike brand.